The end. All returns to nothing.
Call of the Void is one of the biggest content patches for Dauntless. With Umbral Escalations, training islands, changes to progression, and a new hunt pass, we've got a lot to unpack today. I'll be starting with Umbral Escalations and working my way down the list. Sounds good? Sounds good. If you have any questions afterwards, I'll be hosting AMA streams until the 11th, so be sure to stop by. If I happen to sound a little bit different, I have an ear infection right now, so I might not, sound quite the same, but I'll get over it. Otherwise, let's get to it. Sprawling caverns, twilight crystals, forgotten ruins, and deepening corruption compose the majority of the arenas featured in Umbral Escalations. These are honestly some of the most visually inspired locales to date, and I'm very impressed with the direction the team at Phoenix Labs took with the design of this particular escalation. I also might be a little bit biased. I enjoy cosmic and galactic themes, especially when they're presented with an eldritch twist. There's also this pretty neat orb tucked away in a little corner behind one of the arenas. I wonder what that's about. Umbral Escalation brings a lot to the table, especially when it comes to the three new behemoth variants known as the Shadow Touched. Drask, Nezaga, and Koshai have been infested with Umbral Aether, twisting and corrupting them with horrible power. These new Shadow Touched behemoths have moves that differentiate them from their standard counterparts, like Nezaga summoning Riftstalker-like clones of himself to charge at you, or Drask unleashing a barrage of Umbral orbs to try and annihilate you. They also just look flat out incredible. Shadow Touched Koshai is by far the most aesthetically pleasing of the bunch, and it's clear they put a lot of care and consideration when it came to altering its appearance for this escalation. With new behemoths comes a slew of new amps that you can upgrade and unlock through the Lantern Attunement device. You'll see some familiar choices and upgrades here, like Go Time, Full Throttle, etc. But we've also got some new amps to explore like Void Blast, Summoner, Shadow Dodge, and much more. A lot of the newer amps center around dealing wound damage, so builds that run Acidic or use the Pike as their main weapon will have a lot of options here. I'll be briefly covering some of the new amps I found to be the most interesting. Surgical Precision is a lot like Squad Goals, except it can scale wildly out of proportion depending on the amount of players who have it, and when they get it. When you break a wounded part, you'll get a 2% damage bonus for the rest of the escalation. You'll also get an additional 2% for every other player that has Surgical Precision as well, meaning that with coordination, you can wildly scale the amount of stacks you get to insane amounts. The obvious drawback is that this amp is kind of not great for solo play, since you'll have to not only wound, but break that part before a behemoth dies. Definitely worth considering for team play though. Void Blast is a lot like Hot Shot from Blaze Escalation, but this time it's actually useful. Void Blast spawns a little orb near a behemoth that you can hit in order to send a blast of Umbral orbs in different directions, dealing decent damage on impact. The neat thing about these orbs is that they can interrupt, and if you're a Chad like me, you can get some pretty wicked plays. Check this out.
You're nuts! Yeah, dude.
All in all, Void Blast is an amp that's definitely worth taking if you want to spice up your gameplay. Summoner is my favorite amp from this escalation. Every 2000 points of wound damage you inflict, you'll spawn a random orb that either deals damage or heals you. This can get kind of insane, and if another person in your party also happens to have Summoner, you'll be dealing with a lot of balls. And trust me and Revvy know a lot about balls. It's nothing super crazy damage-wise, but it can definitely make a lot of your escalation encounters feel a lot more fun and hectic both in solo and group play. Shadow Dodge is one of the more interesting amp choices for this particular escalation. Dealing damage builds up a stack of Shadow Dodge, which you can then expend every time you roll through a behemoth's attack. Expending a stack of Shadow Dodge causes an Umbral Explosion that deals decent damage, but can also interrupt, giving it a lot of good utility over a lot of other amp choices in Umbral Escalations. It also makes for a stylish way to interrupt behemoths. These are just some of the additions I thought were particularly worthy of note. Be sure to check out RevvyRad and OhDough's videos as well, since they'll be more than likely covering some of the things I don't talk about here. Thrax is the main center of attention, but he kind of seems unassuming at a glance. But don't worry, the way he moves on top of his disturbing, insectoid laughter gives a lot of the fight some pretty potent atmosphere. His moveset is also very mobile, with his kit able to hit you from range or with close range AoE attacks. He can also eat and yeet you, so that's, pretty fun. One of his most visually impressive attacks is during his Aether form. He'll dash across the arena and create lines of umbral corruption, damaging slayers unless they can roll through them or jump over them. It's very visually impressive and it really adds to the immersion of the fight. The arena you fight Thrax in is also genuinely one of the best, if not the best, in the entire game. If you manage to beat Thrax, you'll gain the ability to craft his gear and new legendary weapons. Both the armor and weapons look absolutely incredible, really selling that Eldritch Corruption aesthetic. The chest and boots come with technique slots and cunning, while the gloves come with a power slot and 9 lives. The helmet comes with a utility slot and a new cell called Catalyst. Catalyst increases tonic effectiveness and tonic duration up to a maximum of 60% for both. I'll go ahead and say this right off the bat, I think this is probably one of the strongest utility cells in the game and a must-have for everyone. Tonics are universally useful, and this can make them even more desirable as elements of your arsenal. If you like the look of the armor set, then odds are you'll like the look of the Ultra armor as well. Both sets are visually stunning and are some of the best pieces of armor I've seen in Dauntless so far. And the same can easily be said for the weapons and their legendary ability. Thrax's descent causes you to teleport into the sky, dealing damage to behemoths around you. While you're in the air, you can pick a location to land, causing a large AoE explosion that can interrupt behemoths. I really like this legendary ability, and out of the 3 that are currently available, this is probably the most useful one in design. You can use it to reliably dodge a behemoth's attack, or use it to prep for a stylish interrupt, something that is inherently useful for repeater players. You can bond the legendary weapons to either the Shroud or Riftstalker weapons, inheriting their unique effects and innate perk. This opens up the possibility for more builds to use Riftstalker or Shroud weapons without having to worry about cell slot limitations. And there's no better way to test how your build performs than to hit up the new Training Grounds. Training Grounds are a special kind of hunt that you can access through your hunt menu, and it'll take you to a special island specifically made to test your combos, builds, and see your damage output in real time. If you need to swap out your cells or weapons on the fly, you can. Just open up your loadout and swap away. Or if you're a fresh slayer and you don't really have every weapon unlocked, you can interact with the weapons floating on the docks to use one of your choice. There's a brief set of introductory quests you can take on while you're here that'll help you with the basics. I've been looking forward to this edition for a long while, especially as someone who likes to test and tinker with different builds. Having an environment that promotes both experimentation and overall learning is nothing but a positive addition to the game for slayers of any skill level, both old and new. For newer players, the Training Island isn't the only change being made to the game. Upgrading your gear from between levels 1 through 10 will no longer require you to reach a certain slayer level, making it easier to progress at a faster pace if you wanted to. Another gameplay change is the introduction of Client Authoritative Dodging. Client Authoritative Dodging, in layman's terms, works like this. If you see an attack coming towards you and you dodge through it, what your computer sees will actually take priority over what the server sees. This is extremely beneficial for playing with friends in different regions, and for people who generally suffer with latency issues. The system has a few minor issues, but for the long-term health of the game, it's a change that's absolutely necessary in my eyes. On my streams, I tend to play with people who are from different regions, and being able to enjoy the game with them without the hassle of latency impacting their performance is an immense joy. Moving briefly away from the gameplay changes, I wanted to go ahead and talk about the new Hunt Pass, and some of the changes that came with that as well. Relic and Ruin is a celestial Hunt Pass with the galactic themes and cosmic influences, focused around the legacy of a civilization of slayers referred to as the Void Runners. This Hunt Pass marks the return of armor transmogs to the basic track, granting you the basic version of this Hunt Pass's armor once you reach Hunt Pass level 50. Also included on the basic track are tidbits of lore known as Chronicles, short stories that reveal more of the lore tied to Dauntless. You can find them in the journal, a new addition to Dauntless that is more focused on providing information on the world and the people that inhabit the Shattered Isles. You can find information on discovered behemoths here, the backgrounds of characters around Ramsgate, as well as general information regarding weapons and combat. This is a nice touch that I think Dauntless was sorely lacking. A lot of the game's lore was previously only available through external media, so having information present in the game and in a format that's visually appealing is a huge step in the right direction. Going back to the Hunt Pass, a lot of the cosmetics here are pretty much right up my alley. I love anything space related, and the overall theme of this patch centers heavily around the void and the cosmos. Pretty sweet stuff. The Ultra armor in particular is pretty sweet and worth copying if you think this is the aesthetic that you're into. There's also some new cosmetic bundles available on the store, both with their own distinct theme. Between Starbound and Umbral Eclipse, I think Umbral Eclipse has to be my personal favorite. It has the best looking repeater skin ever made, on top of a set of horns and face paint to make you look as threatening and demonic as possible. The lantern that comes with this bundle is kind of my least favorite. I wish it was a little more animated, but the rest of the bundle really makes up for it. Starbound is great if you like that whole Sailor Moon or Magical Girl aesthetic, but it's not really my preferred style. If you happen to pick up either the Hunt Pass or any of these bundles, you can use my creator code to give me a kickback on some of your purchases. It helps me acquire new resources for content creation as well as letting me upgrade some of my equipment, and it only costs you a few keystrokes and a little bit of your time. That's pretty much the majority of what I wanted to cover for this patch. I'll be going over some miscellaneous notes that didn't really fit into any category. Nezaga's slide is now interruptible, which is kind of a weird change. Dodging has an auditory and visual effect for when you get your iframes, which is a nice little addition. Flares have a new background cloud that can help make them more visually distinct, and also makes my flare look pretty incredible. The main menu received an update, as did the logo for Dauntless. It'll take a little bit for me to get used to, but it's not really that big of a deal. I've seen the menu change so much already, another change isn't really that major to me. You can inspect other players by holding E on them, which will let you add them as a friend. This is the framework set for a much bigger system coming out that I can't talk about, but am excited to see implemented in the future. And that about wraps it up for me. I'd like to thank Phoenix Labs for giving me the opportunity to release content on patch 1.3.0 prior to launch, and I look forward to seeing how you guys enjoy Call of the Void. If you like my content and want to see more of my videos, feel free to like and subscribe and follow me on Twitter to keep up to date with my shenanigans. I also have a Discord now, which will be linked in the description from this point on. Come say hi. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care, and have a good one.